pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. We're at the Mitchell County Courthouse. This is the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors proceedings. Before us, we have an agenda. Any issues with that agenda? If not, do we have any motions to approve?
So moved.
Jim has made a motion. Second. Mike has seconded. All those in favor of the agenda say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Hearing none, moving on. Approve the minutes of the February 23rd meeting. Is there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, do we have any motions?
I'll move to make that motion.
Todd has made a motion.
I'll second it.
Mark has seconded. Roll call. Todd.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Smollett, aye. So we've approved the minutes of the February 23rd meeting. County Attorney, general discussion. Are you there, Mark?
Yes, I am.
Do you have anything for us today?
Nothing specific. The only issue I know has been going back and forth is the issue of borrowing money for county conservation, how much we're actually going to borrow, what we need to borrow or do procedurally to borrow money. It's my position, and I'm confident I'm correct on this, that any time the county wants to borrow money for a purpose, they have to publish notice and do a public hearing. Now the question becomes what type of a public hearing, what type of notice is necessary. That all depends upon the amount being borrowed. If it's over a certain dollar amount, you have to use one procedure. If it's under a certain amount, you have to use another. This is the thing that's always bothersome to an attorney. I thought at one time I had found a code section that said, that you could borrow money under these circumstances and you don't have to have a public hearing. But of course I can't find that, so now it's, did I imagine that? Did I dream it? Or am I just not finding it? And right now I'm under the position that I must have imagined it or dreamed it because everything I'm finding says if you want to borrow money, if it's over $400,000, you use this procedure. If it's under $400,000, you use this procedure. So I still don't know how much we're borrowing. I'm meeting with Adam. I know Jim had some comments about the local option sales tax and switching that around and switching around the TIF money. And so I'm meeting with Adam this afternoon. We're going to talk about it, but until we actually know how much conservation is going to have to borrow, we don't know how we proceed. So that's just kind of a general overview on the county borrowing money.
Okay. I guess we'll find that out because I didn't know we were borrowing any.
Well, I think, according to Adam, the board actually approved it, that this is $800,000 for that property over by Stacyville. They, unofficially, and maybe it was the board before that unofficially approved it, said, yeah, if you can work, if you can get a grant, if you can do this, if you can do this, the county will borrow $800,000. And that's that Pittston property. And this has been going on with Pittston's for probably at least 2 years, maybe more. So maybe it was a previous board that unofficially, just said, yes, if you can get it bought under these conditions, we'll agree to borrow this much money. it's actually county conservation that's borrowing the money, but the county conservation can't borrow it. The Board of Supervisors has to. So that's what I know about it.
Okay, well, I guess I was on the previous board and I have it in my head that we suggested that they could buy it, but in my head, Barb and I suggested that it would be bought and paid for through the future with programs. It wasn't, I don't believe we ever suggested tipping. But that could be.
No. What I think Jim was at least talking to me about is part of the courthouse payments come from the local option sales tax. Part of that comes from TIF. Jim has been looking into if we could take that local option sales tax, put that into a different category to be spent on something else, and the TIF money could be used to pay the courthouse loan.
That's correct.
Is that correct, Jim?
That's correct.
And my understanding is that, and Jim sent me the video, I don't even remember this discussion about a year ago, where we had this exact same discussion, if we could do something like that, and I think the answer was everybody agreed we could, in the future, if we wanted to do that. So, it's not that TIF funds would be used for that, it's just that the local option sales tax would be switched to a different account, and all the payments from the courthouse would come from the TIF money. The local option sales tax would go for something else. Is that kind of what you were looking at, Jim?
Yes, that's correct. The way I understood initially, when there wasn't enough TIF money to make the full courthouse payments when we first started that, because there weren't enough, they weren't online enough. They work into property tax over so many years, so there wasn't enough to make the full payment with TIF. So it was set up so that, I believe it was $325,000 or $350,000, something to that order of local option sales tax would help to make that courthouse payment. And now there's enough online that that courthouse payment can be made fully with TIF, and then that's my desire, is that we pull that local option sales tax out of that formula so that it's more accessible for us to use for the public good. And are you going to be available when we start talking about this with conservation, or Mark, or?
Yes, I'll stay on.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know how much to talk about it now and how much to wait until Adam starts talking about it. I guess I'm not really sure where we should do with that, but.
I'll stay on. And just for the supervisors who have just been elected, and maybe you understand this, and if you do, I apologize. But what happens when you tip those windmills, the windmills, and Rachel, you correct me if I'm wrong here, the first year they may be paid 10% of the tax that's due. The other 90% is abated. The next year it's 20%. The next year it's 30%, and I don't know what the exact figures are. But they gradually escalate up to paying 100% of 15% or whatever that goofy formula is. And so originally, when the money was borrowed for the courthouse, there wasn't enough money coming in from the windmills to make the courthouse payments. But now that we're a few years out, now there's enough money coming in from the windmills to make those payments. Is that pretty much right, Rachel?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact percentages, but it gradually
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, I was just making up percentages.
Yeah.
I just know it's just gradual. It comes in over. It's not like we're tipping it, we get 100%. It escalates up over 10 years to the maximum.
It's zero the first year, and then it's 5% the first, after the first. I think it's zero for the first, and then it kicks into 5, I believe. Or Heidi?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
It's 0 the first year, kicks into 5, and then goes up by 5% until it hits the 30%, and then it stays at 30% for the remainder of the 20 year.
But what if they have a major breakdown? They go back to 0, correct?
If they have them,
There's one of them they're taking down right now, it's the second one, they're tearing it down.
if they're tearing down one of them, if.
They're tearing down two of them now, I just seen a big crane, but there's one that hasn't turned for months, and they're got a big crane there, 6 semis come in and they're taking it down. They
So
must
the,
have issues.
so the Department of Revenue has said that if there's a significant change in the value, they haven't exactly said, you know, what that is, then they can reset the turbine, and then it'll start back over at that 0%.
So I don't know if these qualify for that, but I mean, they've been, this money turned for 4 months, and now there's a crane there taking it apart. It's the second one I've seen up in the north part of the county that way, so I don't know if that's gonna affect, how much that's gonna affect stuff.
You know, one or two turbines is not going to affect, you know, too much, and then also know that, it takes a few years for, because you have to have that new assessment, then it goes on to the next year and then into the next fiscal year. So it's about a 3-year, lag with the new valuations too.
Yeah.
If it's one or two turbines, your cash flow, can cover that, but if there's some significant, then we have to look into it further.
I mean, it could just be the beginning of things to come, you know, they're all the same design, if two have problems, it could be, I don't know, you know, I just,
Yeah.
just to be cautious on, nothing's guaranteed in this world, you know, so,
Anyways,
anyway, that's all I.
moving on this, is that everything? Mark,
That's all I have, yes.
we'll move on and discuss this later. Sheriff update? Good morning.
Everyone. Yeah, so the only thing I have for you this morning is, I just wanted to update you on our hiring process. So yesterday, the application deadline came and went. So we have 22 applications for the new deputy's position. 9 of those 22 are certified officers that may come in from other agencies. We have, 8. Of the 22, we had 17 returned. So we have a pool of 17. 9 of those are certified, 8 are non-certified, and 1 female. So we have a pretty good pool to select from. So the next phase that we got to get through is March 13th, when the Civil Service Commission will get together and administer a post-exam. They certify a list of 10 applicants that are eligible to be hired, and I get that list then from the Civil Service Commission, and from that 10 is who I need to select the next deputy from. So after the 13th, what we'll do is take that list of 10, begin to review those applications, do what we need to do as far as background checks go, conduct interviews. I'm hopeful that by May 1st, we can have the new deputy hired and working. So it just kind of depends on some things that are out of my control, like an MMPI exam, which we need to give to prospective hirees. That gets reviewed by the academy, so there might, when they get to it, you know, it could be 2 days or 2 weeks. So I'm kind of at their mercy once we submit it to those folks. But typically within a couple of weeks, I have their opinions back on those tests. And then if you select, the best applicant is somebody that's coming from another agency, they'll have to give at least 2 weeks notice to that agency. So there's a month right there. So somewhere in the first 2 weeks of May, we should have somebody up and running. So
Okay, sounds good.
yeah, I think we got a good pool. I think a lot of that has to do with what previous boards and this board has done to support, you know, the office in terms of wages and benefits and equipment. Other agencies see that, other guys see that, and that draws them to come to us. So appreciate that, you know, your support now and the boards in the past. So unless you have questions on that process, that's really all I have for you today.
Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, you bet, Jim. Yep.
Anybody
Okay.
have any questions or any other questions for the sheriff? Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
You bet.
County engineer update.
Morning. Couple of things. we're still working with Adam on whether he wants some of them parts or not for the dump truck or whatever, so we're gonna try to maybe hit, instead of a Fox auction, we're probably gonna do a Purple Wave. The Purple Wave auctions don't cost us anything to put out there. There's a buyer premium on the stuff we sell, so might be a better cost cheaper for us to do it that way than to maybe go through the auction company. And we don't have that deadline met anyway, so they're gonna have their auction. I don't think we're gonna see any change in cost. We might get better numbers just based because Purple Wave is more of a nationwide service. So probably gonna be seeing some costs here. We're gonna look at buying the Mack truck software that we've got a discount for because of the delivery of our Mack truck. Mack gave us a $1,000 discount on that software package. It's a $3,200 package, less than $1,000, and it's gonna pay for itself, I can tell you that, because we had a service call in Worth County a couple weeks ago, and it cost us about half of what the software would have cost us if we had it. So I think it's money well spent to have that, so we don't have to pay for that. And then also, we're looking at, going through some budget stuff, looking at an air exchanger now that we got the roof done in the main shop, get some air exchanger in there to keep the humidity down in the wintertime. That's looking at about, I don't know if it'll be more than $20,000. We have quotes for less than that, but those are older quotes. So that's what we've got. And then a couple other things, what we're noticing in trends we've got bridge projects in the letting this month. Bridge prices are getting more expensive. I think there's a lot of work out there, so contractors are naming their prices, and the balance of that is concrete prices. I've been told by a contractor last week that it'll be a bloodbath when we let our projects. There's not a lot of work out there, so we're gonna probably get some pretty good competitive bids. So that's the update I've got for you. It's gonna be warm this week, next week. It's gonna get muddy and sloppy, so.
Make her quick, Rich.
That's all I've got for you. That's all I've got for you, unless you guys
Okay.
have questions.
No questions for Rich?
Thank you.
Big breath. All right.
All right, moving on, public hearing on ordinance 53. And, we'll open the public hearing. Are there any oral or written comments? Rachel, did you receive any?
No.
Is there any discussion on ordinance 53? If not, we close the public hearing. Consideration of the first reading of public, reading of ordinance 53. Is there any other comments?
Steve?
Yes.
Steve, this is Mark. If someone wants to move, they can move that you waive the first and second reading since it's not controversial and no public comments have been received. So you can entertain a motion to waive the first and second reading, have discussion on that, and then do a roll call vote, and then someone could move to approve the ordinance, do a roll call vote, a discussion, second roll call vote on that too.
Okay. So, is there a motion out there to,
I'll move to waive the first and second reading of ordinance 53, ordinance number 53.
Jim has made a motion.
I will second that.
Mike has seconded it. Roll call. Todd?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Maulik? Aye. So, that motion that is passed, and so we'll waive the first and second reading. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none. Do we have any motions to approve the ordinance?
I move to approve the ordinance 53.
Mike has made a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
has seconded. Roll call vote again. Todd?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Smollett, aye. So we've also approved the ordinance 53. Is that done correctly, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. So, that has passed. Moving on, presentation from Town and Country Insurance. And I'm going to let you have the floor.
Good morning. I'm Carla Mitchell from Town and Country Insurance.
Thank you.
So I'm here today with Keith Hockenberry, who's from Jester Insurance, who we work very closely with municipality programs. Want to thank you for the opportunity to let us come today and talk with you about your property and liability insurance. Keith has some brochures here, and he's going to visit with you about some of the coverages that they do offer.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna walk through everything that's in the packet. It's really, that's just for your leisure. If you're having trouble sleeping tonight, take this home with you and
I thought that might keep a person from sleeping.
so, again, thank you for the time. Now, I heard you were trying to limit the meeting to 3 hours, but Carla told me I had an hour and a half right now.
Oh, okay.
No, we'll keep it quick, 10, 15 minutes. Really, again, thank you for the opportunity. As Carla said, my name is Keith Hockenberry. I'm with Jester Insurance, located down in Des Moines, Iowa. And I want to give you a little bit of background about us, and then why I'm here, and then what our relationship is with Carla and the local agent. So, Jester Insurance, again, we're located in Des Moines, Iowa. We've been around for about 130 years now, and really our expertise from a property and liability insurance, so that's what we're talking about, is property liability work on, is with governmental entities. So our organization has worked with EMC Insurance, which also is located in Des Moines, Iowa, for almost 50 years, and we insure between 800 and 900 governmental entities in the state of Iowa. So that's public schools, cities, counties, etc. Just some of the examples close to you folks that we work with within an EMC program is City of Osage, Osage Municipal Utilities, the Osage Community School District, and then the closest county would be Floyd County, you folks that purchase coverage through EMC. So again, EMC's been insuring public entities in Iowa for almost 50 years, and our agency has been working with them. So a little just about, I guess, what our role is, and then Carla's and how everything fits into place. So when we work with a governmental entity across the state, we understand being located in Des Moines, we're not going to be able to know what's going on in Osage, etc. So we work with a local agent that is there. So really, when I look at it, when I describe the relationship, it's really a four-pronged approach. We're the managing general agent, so we oversee the relationship, and really we're there from an expertise standpoint and as an advocate for the county, and then as a resource as well for the county, and then the local agent. The local agent, are the boots on the ground per se that just have the relationships, understand what's going on in and around your county. EMC Insurance is the insurance provider, so that's the actual company. So they would be the ones that would pay the claims, and obviously the county is at the other prong in that four-prong approach. So today, as my understanding is today, that the county's purchased insurance through a risk pool and has done so for quite a few years. So I'm coming today just simply to ask for the opportunity to allow Carla to quote the county's property and liability insurance for your 2021 renewal coming up in July. What we are seeing from an industry perspective, everyone is aware that the derecho came through Iowa last year, and it depends what you look at, but at last count, that was over an $8 or $9 billion event. It's actually going to be the largest thunderstorm in the United States history, and greatly impacted Iowa. So what we're starting to see in general, and this is not just with municipalities, but it's really across the board in the insurance market, are significant price increases. And we are seeing competitors in the state that are providing 25, 30% plus rate increases to their members. So I think now would be an excellent opportunity to take advantage of the bidding process if you haven't done that in several years. In big, I want to talk about just a handful of coverages when we are comparing to competitors' policies where we see EMC's product stand out. But first and foremost, fundamentally, purchasing insurance through a risk pool as you are today and through a regulated insurance company are just different. And I'm not here to tell you one is better than the other. That's not my job. That's why you folks are the elected officials. And as a side note, I sit on my local school board, so I appreciate what you folks do. I think your job's probably a lot harder than sitting on the school board. We don't meet weekly. But I appreciate what you folks do, and I understand some of the challenges and everything from a budgeting standpoint and then trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So, but fundamentally, purchasing from a risk pool and then purchasing from an insurance company are different. So EMC is regulated by the state of Iowa. So anything that they do, as I mentioned, from like a rate standpoint, has to be approved. So they aren't able to just say, hey, we want to take a 50% increase just because. That actually has to go through the Iowa Insurance Division, and they have to provide substantial data to them justifying why they would want to do that. A risk pool is not subject to that regulation. And just from my experience, as an independent agent and representing dozens of companies, that regulation in this setting is a good thing. It helps hold those companies accountable to make sure that what's happening is in your best interest. So those fundamentally are differences between purchasing from a risk pool that's not regulated and then purchasing from an insurance company that is. Any questions, I guess, on that right away? So one thing that we would want to do, often what we see when working with any government entity that's currently in a pool, is those pools often do contain some withdrawal procedures that can be difficult to even take a bid. So if the county is interested in that, that would be something that we want to look at pretty quickly, since your renewal is about 4 months out. In many cases, we see that there are notification requirements. Simply, if you are going to take a quote, you have to notify the risk pool, even if you're just going to take a quote. So that would be something, if you are interested, we want to address that right away. Now, your current provider should be able to tell you if you have any of those hurdles and simply obtain another quote. And I can look at those contracts as well. I do that on a daily basis and would be happy to look at it and tell you. And if we look at something and it doesn't make sense for the county to pursue the quote, I would tell you, no, you need to wait. Not only have we seen the withdrawal provisions within there, on occasion there's some liability and there's some coverage issues as well if you were going to leave a risk pool. So we'd want to evaluate those to be able to give you the best guidance also before you would move forward and actually doing applications and obtaining the quote. We don't want to do anything that's not in your best interest. Any questions on that? If not, I just want to hit on a couple policies or a couple coverage things that we see are very, very important. Now, first and foremost, again, I sit on my school board, so cost that's an automatic in my eyes. So I'm not going to talk a lot about premium. Clearly, if you obtain a quote and we are 50% higher, it's not going to be the best use of the taxpayer dollars unless we can point out some significant issues in your current coverage. So that's a given. Anytime I'm talking to a council or board, I tell them right away that's obvious. We understand from a competitive standpoint that we need to be there premium-wise. I'm confident that we could be. EMC, through our various programs, we wouldn't insure over 800 governmental entities in Iowa if they weren't competitive from a premium standpoint. But the next thing, and really in my opinion the most important thing, is the coverage. So what are you getting for the taxpayer dollars that you're spending. I would encourage you, as you consider this, if you know anyone at Marshall County, I would encourage you to reach out to them. So they are an EMC insured. So a couple years ago when the tornado came through there, you know, they were definitely not asking at that point what their premium was. They were coming to EMC and saying, do we have everything covered? That claim ended up being over a $30 million claim. The county paid exactly one deductible, which was their property deductible. I think it was $5,000 at that point. And everything else was a covered loss. So the coverage is really important, so I just want to highlight a couple of things where we see a differentiator typically with what EMC provides. So first would be property related, so all of your buildings. So you're not going to have an issue with the courthouse here, but ordinance or law, so those are obviously those things. You have buildings, probably some older buildings that have been grandfathered in. So when they were constructed, there's been certain ordinances or laws that had changed since their construction point. And what people don't understand typically is that that building is significantly damaged. Obviously, you have to enforce those ordinance or laws on yourself as well. When you rebuild that, you have to bring them up to code, whatever those code requirements are. And typically people just think, well, hey, I have replacement costs, I've got my building value, that'll cover it. That, you know, they're going to replace it. Well, what an insurance contract says is they're going to replace it as it sits today. So those ordinance or law changes, those additional costs, are actually in addition to, and it's a separate coverage. And what we generally find is that's limited to about $250,000 or less with most companies. And what EMC does is they say if your county has $25 million in total property coverage, you have $25 million in ordinance or law coverage. So in that scenario, if you have a building that you have insured for $1 million, but it costs you $2 million to rebuild it because you're bringing it up to code to meet all the ordinances and the code changes since it was constructed, you would have that fully covered and not have to take any additional funds out of your budget to rebuild that. And Marshall County was a good case of that. We saw it on multiple buildings, and one in particular I would not have even thought of, but it was essentially a storage building shed. What we found out is when it was damaged, the new ordinance or code said that the footings needed to actually be twice as deep as they were. So EMC paid to demolish the rest of that building and then dig down, put the footings twice as deep, and rebuild the entire thing and replace it. And that typically would not have been covered at 100%. Within their coverage it was, and they didn't have to spend any additional money on that. The next couple are going to be related to the county's liability. So unfortunately we have this exposure, we have to provide this coverage, but it's related to abuse and molestation. So EMC specifically endorses that onto all the governmental entities' liability coverage. So if there's an accusation made, it can be false, but if the accusation is made, you will start to accrue defense costs. So EMC automatically endorses that coverage onto the policy for whatever your liability limits are that you choose. You have that full coverage. We often see that other providers exclude that, and the government entities don't understand that, or the providers are silent on it, which in insurance language means there's just no verbiage in your policy regarding that coverage, and it's a gray area, and basically they'll determine at the time of loss if it's going to be covered or not. That's not the position you want to be in, especially for a coverage like that. You want it to be pretty black and white. Is it covered, is it not? And if it's covered, what are our coverage limits? Second thing from a liability standpoint is railroad contractual liability. I would assume there are various times where the county has to make repairs or work within the 50 feet of the railroad that goes through the county. So at some point, you have agreed contractually to identify and hold the railroads harmless from any liability associated with that if they were to get drug into it. So what we typically see is that's excluded with most general liability policies. So if that's the case, you're basically self-insuring that risk and having to defend them. With an EMC's product, it's just built in, that contractual obligation is built into the policy because we understand that it exists. And you don't want to pay for that out of pocket. The third thing from a liability standpoint, and it's important to the folks in the room is public officials coverage as it relates to non-monetary damages or non-monetary lawsuits. So we have seen in Iowa this become a big issue for a couple counties. So many public official claims or issues are not related to individuals that are upset seeking damages from the county. They're upset because the county has changed zoning ordinance, et cetera, and that you're allowing something to occur that they would prefer not to occur. So they or a group of people file suit to get you to change your mind. So again, they're not filing a suit seeking monetary damages or gain. They want you to change your opinion on what you're allowing. I heard you mention wind turbines, and that's been, if you do research, there's definitely been some issues non-monetarily associated with those around the state. So what many policies do, they will tell you that you have a high liability limit for your public officials coverage and you feel good about it. But if you dig into your policy, you'll see a sublimit for non-monetary defense, and I've seen it as low as $50,000. So that means if there is a non-monetary issue, the county, all the supervisors, anyone named is sharing or splitting that $50,000 of defense costs, when you might think you have your full liability limit. Within EMC's policy, it does provide your full liability limit. So whatever you have for public officials, if you have an umbrella or an excess liability policy, which I'm sure you do, you would have that entire amount to pay for defense versus, like I said, as low as $50,000. And then cyber is another the last issue. It's becoming more and more of a problem. Can't turn on the news or Google anything really without seeing some type of cyber attack. And governmental entities are becoming more and more targeted. And the biggest issue that we are seeing is ransomware or extortion, where they hack into someone's system, they lock it down, and they extort you and say, if you don't pay us X amount of dollars, we will do damage, or we're going to destroy the information or take the personal information that we have, etc. And counties, certainly with law enforcement and all the other aspects, do have personally identifiable information that would be considered private. What we typically see other carriers do is, again, they'll tell you, hey, you have this big liability limit for cyber, and everybody feels good. But then when you get into the devil's in the details and you start reading the fine print, they will sublimit that extortion coverage. And I've seen it as low as $25,000. So again, people feel good about it. Hey, we've got millions of dollars in coverage. We're good. But when you dig through it, one of the primary drivers in cyber claims, ransomware extortion, you may have as low as $25,000. So the program that we put together for that, it does not do that. Whatever the limit is that you purchase for your liability on the cyber product, it gives you that for the extortion as well. That's just one example within cyber. So again, we would just love the opportunity to have a chance to review your coverages with Carla, go through it, educate you on what you have today, what you could purchase through our program, through Carla, go through the differences. And at the end of the day, we understand it has to be competitive from a premium standpoint as well. Any questions for me? I threw a lot at you in a short amount of time. But
You throw a lot at us and we're not insurance people.
and that's where, nor should you be, because you guys, there's a lot on your plate, and I've learned this at my time on the school board. There are certain things people are talking like, I don't know, we need to have the right people, and people that are experts in that area look at it and then advise me, because I don't know what they're talking about when it comes to curriculum and some of those other things. So that's what we're here for. That's why, again, we're an advocate and a resource for you and for the local agent. My role at Gesture, the majority of my role is working with governmental entities and spending my time on their insurance. I do public speaking for various organizations across the state on an annual basis, just in governmental entity insurance. So it really is what we do. We understand the laws, we stay in tune to all of that. So you would have access to us through Carla as a resource. I would encourage you to contact Floyd County. We've been involved with them through their local agent quite a bit, especially on contract review. So typically what we see is Attorneys don't want to comment on the insurance aspects of the contract, which I totally understand. I don't want to comment on the legal aspect of a contract, but we certainly want to get involved, and we help our clients through any of those insurance aspects of those contracts, and again, making sure that you don't have anything in there that you're not covered for, and vice versa.
Something that I was not aware of, you mentioned as far as a provision that in order for us to even seek a quote, we might have to check with our risk pool to do that. So I guess it'd be difficult for us to say right now that we're gonna do a quote until we find that out.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys, you'll want to find, I'm not as familiar with, there is another pool I'm more familiar with their contract. The Heartland pool, who I believe you guys participate in, I'm not as familiar with their contract and what, if any, there might not be any, but you certainly would want to get their opinion on that. And then again, if you want a second set of eyes, I'm happy if you can get that contract to review it and tell you here's our interpretation of any potential hiccups or withdrawal provisions that would be built in there.
So if we did chose to go down this route and we contacted Heartland to see if that needs to be done, what's a date that you want as far as to actually do the quote process?
Yeah, good question. So it really, that's why we're here now, because it is a process for Carla to gather all the information. Assume you have quite a few vehicles, locations, property values. We want to make sure everything is done correctly. So the goal typically would be to present that quote by mid-June. If you want time to make a decision and not have it be the very last meeting in June where you get information and you have 10 minutes to review it and you're making a pretty big financial decision. So it would be early to mid-June would be the goal for that. So we'd want to start the process with applications by the beginning of April. Give you guys about a month to try to get all your ducks in a row and find out, is it even possible? And then that provides Carla a couple of months to work through that process with EMC on obtaining those quotes.
Mark, have you been listening to all understanding of all of this?
I've been listening. If I said I had a thorough understanding of it, I'd be misspeaking.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I did not have a thorough understanding of what you were talking about earlier, Mark, so.
Rachel, is that something that you can
Yeah,
contact
I can
Heartland?
talk with Lindsay, I'm sure she has a policy.
I mean, it's difficult for us,
Yeah.
it's difficult for us to just sit here and say, no, we don't want to listen to anything you have to say. I mean, that, we need to go through the right process in order to.
Yeah, no, I did not expect an answer today.
Yeah.
Fully understand you have to go through the process to even determine it. But just really wanted to speak and encourage you to at least take into consideration if you haven't done it. Who knows, you might find out. In these situations, the absolute worst case scenario for the county is you find out by going through the process that you have great coverage today with no gaps and you're paying a heck of a premium. And if that's the worst outcome, you guys are in pretty good shape. Now, flip side, you might find out that you do have some coverage gaps that we can provide and fill in and potentially do so even at a cost.
I do know that July 1st of 2020, we entered into a 5-year agreement with Heartland Insurance.
So, yeah, again, if you want to look at that, if you want us to look at it, I'd be happy to look at it. There, typically, even entering into that, there's going to be some type of withdrawal, an ability for you to look at other options. But maybe not. We have to look at it. And that's one of the drawbacks with that. If EMC or a regulated carrier tried to do that, the insurance division would never allow it, because you losing flexibility as a buyer is not and a consumer is not a good thing. I mean, it's you want to be able to hold the insurance provider, whomever it is, accountable, so they're not doing things that would be outside of what the market would otherwise do. Because if they are, that's when you look at other options, and you have your agent look at other alternative options. So that's why the insurance commissioner on that regulated product would never allow something like that, because it's not in the best interest of whomever the consumer is. I don't want to take up any more time, but thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, discussion and possible action on refinancing courthouse bond. I see Heidi is here with Northland, there's Scott and Nate here with DA Davidson. Yes, I heard that, yes. Okay, I guess short and sweet is
Virtually, yeah.
you're there, here. Thank you. I guess we've been leading up to this day and to get right down to it, we're looking for who can give us the best deal. And that is what we're asking from Northland today, and that's what we're asking from for DA Davidson. Who is going to give us the best deal so that we can proceed here? So I'm not for sure how to ask this, but who would like to be the first to speak? DA Davidson or Northland? Northland.
Typically, I'd be happy to, when we have both competitors in the room or virtually at the same time, it may be a better, I can step out and have DA Davidson talk about, their proposal, and then be happy to come back in and have that discussion between competitors.
Yeah.
And I talked with Jeff yesterday, and I told him that we would make that happen. So if DA Davison wants to go ahead, if you wanted to, would rather step out, we'll go that route.
That would work fine then. Heidi will leave the room and then we will allow DA Davidson to give us some of their information.
Everyone, this is Mark. I don't want us to get accused of not having a public hearing. You really can't ask someone to leave the room because then that becomes, you've gone into closed session because you didn't allow her to. Now, if she wants to voluntarily stay, I know I don't have.
She voluntarily left the room. This was her suggestion.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure that gets in the minutes, Rachel.
Yep.
And Mark, this is Todd, and that's why I basically sat here and let her make that decision, but also wanted to let everybody know that I did talk with Jeff. Because he's the one that kind of suggests that not a norm, so if that's okay with you.
Yeah, it's perfect. I just wanted to make sure that she wasn't asked to leave the room. She voluntarily did it, and it got in the minutes. So
Okay.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you, Mark. DA Davidson, I'll let you have the floor. Scott, Nate?
This is Scott. So, thank you, folks. I think I'll just reiterate from there.
Yes, go ahead. Are we there?
This is Scott. I think Nate's kind of cutting out a little bit. Can you folks hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, good. So I think, really today, I don't know that we have anything new or different to share than what we've discussed here in recent history. What I think we can do is kind of give you an update on where interest rates are and for a revisit fee proposals we gave, the sort of two different roles that we discussed performing on behalf of the county. I guess before I really get into that, did you have any direction you wanted to guide us in terms of whether the municipal advisor role or underwriter role is really kind of what you're looking for? Or do you want to talk about both again? Or, you know, we kind of spent some time last go around just discussing the differences. I guess I don't want to waste a lot of time talking about something you're not interested in. So do you have any sense of what your preference is in that regard?
I guess right now, as we're looking at what the quote would be for the bond, correct? That's the proper way of describing it. I guess my thinking, and I'm only speaking for myself, is that if we go with the best deal on that, we may not need the advisory person in the future. If we go work with each entity looking for the best deal, we really don't need the advisory part of it. We're looking for what you can do for us on the bonds.
Okay. So probably steer more towards the underwriting aspect of things. Is that
Correct.
that'd be the, yeah, okay.
I think I'm
So
speaking,
I think our,
hopefully I'm
let's give you a
speaking,
quick rundown of our, yeah, go ahead.
hopefully I'm speaking for the rest of the supervisors. I'm not seeing any frowns, but they got masks on.
You can do more than I can.
I have some thoughts, but let's move on, let's get this going.
Yeah, all right. So give you just a quick overview on where we think rates are at the moment. Now, we talked about this before, interest rates are subject to change on a day-to-day basis, or even hourly basis. But, you know, just give you kind of a snapshot in time. We updated this yesterday, because knowing we're going to have this conversation here today. Savings total about $435,000 right now is what we estimate between the two series you would, you know, have the option of refinancing at a given moment. So that's net of all projected fees. Again, even those fees though are kind of estimated because some of them are out of our control. You've got bond counsel fees, credit rating fees, et cetera, that we don't have direct control over, but you know, we can get to those and I think have a reasonably good idea where that's going to land. The fee we do control in underwriting is our underwriting discount. So what we'd be proposing for this would be $9 a bond or 0.9% of the par amount issued or principal value of the bonds that are being issued. So just for a, you know, if you want to, what's it going to cost to work with you standpoint as an underwriter, $9 per bond or 0.9% is the fee that we've used really from day one. So we're not proposing to change anything here. Just, that's kind of consistently what we've conveyed to you folks here the last couple months since we've been talking. So that's kind of where things stand today. I don't know if you want to get into details on exact rates per year or average rates or anything like that, but the savings I think is probably going to be the big picture item you're going to focus on. Again, I'm happy to discuss savings and ad nauseum, but I guess the point being, you know, rates change and can change dramatically and
Correct.
depending on what market conditions are between now and when you have to issue bonds. We just had a
Yep, I understand
about a
that.
25 basis point move over the last 2 weeks, which doesn't sound like a ton, but that probably, you know, is kind of like a $100,000 change in expected outcome. So that's the kind of change that we experienced over the last 2 weeks. I don't know what the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks are going to bring, but I just want to give you perspective that what you hear today may not be what you end up with as a result.
Correct.
From us or Northland, that's going to be true either way.
Correct. Okay. Well, I think that's the information that we need to know for the current moment. And I guess we will let you cut off now and we will bring Heidi in with Northland. And,
Do you want us to dial back in later to answer any further questions you may have, or you want to just bounce off and, you'll catch up with us down the road, or kind of what would you like us to do here? 'Cause I can't step back into the room, as you know, except by calling back in, which I can do, but I don't want to do that prematurely, so what would you suggest for that?
That's their choice.
That's,
Their choice.
that'll be your choice later. How's that sound? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kinda quiet, isn't it?
That's quiet. Well, thanks for having me come back in today, and I've been looking at this refunding with the board here for a few months, and opportunity to have some savings, and there's questions on, what the fees can be like and how that can be the best for the county.
Well, Heidi, what we're looking at is for you to give us the savings now and your percentage for the principal bond.
So, and I'm gonna, keep that percentage, the same as, as I've been all along. There is, and when we talk about the savings, we've had some market movement, and that, can shift from day to day. I've talked all along is that you have your fees and your bond. That's a piece of the entire package. When you're looking at, every time you go into the market, you're gonna have a bond counsel fee. You may or may not have a rating fee. Between competitors, those fees are going to be the same between the two. One fee that Northland has not had for the county for any of its issuances is a disclosure council fee. Northland has a robust staff that puts together the official statement, and when we put together that quality product with a regular GO bond, we do not require that our issuers have that fee. So Mitchell County, for every issue that they've done with Northland, typically that disclosure council fee is somewhere between the $6,000 and $10,000. So in the past, you've had that savings for that type of fee. And then when you talk about, that's just a small piece of it. Then when you're looking at the total interest cost, the net interest cost, and that's where you're looking at execution in the bond market. And to have sufficient execution in the bond market, you have to have a fee in place in order to get the rates where they're at. I talked about having that 1% on this current savings for the courthouse. That is a fee that will get it done and get it done sufficiently to get you the market rates. I can lower that fee for you to whatever amount that could make it work and get the deal. But what I don't want to do is lower that, so then the day that you go into the market, if that fee's not high enough, the buyers may not be there depending on where the market's at. And then what if your rate's 0.05 higher? What is that cost? To cut down a fee, that cost could easily cost you $20,000 on a $5 million issue. So I quoted that 1% there. In combined with the, some of the savings that you have with things like disclosure council, Northland has knows your bond issues and knows how to put those documents together as well. And so I guess I'd open up if there's any, questions based off of the fee that I've said. And if you'd like me to adjust from there, I absolutely can. That's where we think we'll get you in the market and get that done effectively in the market to get you the lowest interest cost.
So you don't have a savings amount for us on that right currently now?
Well, I ran some numbers. We've had some volatility in the last week. I ran a number with a cushion in it of 0.2%. I'm not sure what the competitor put in front of you, but going into the market today, since we've had that sell-off, the 10-year Treasury went up to over 1.5% last week. It's settled down since then. I ran some conservative numbers that had, if you're in the market today, being it a little bit volatile, I ran some numbers that were 330,000 to 350,000. Conservatively, that has a cushion of 0.2% in there. So that savings would probably be higher, but I don't want to, it's probably not.
You're quoting us a savings currently right now, how much then? 300?
330 to 350, but that has a 0.2% cushion for market volatility. As today you're not going into the market today.
And what was your percentage for principal on the bond?
1%.
1%. Any other questions for Heidi?
So typically, you could maybe add back in that 0.2%, might be more a real,
Oh,
you got a little cushion in there.
there's got cushion in there.
Yeah, 0.2%.
Any other comments?
I have discussion amongst us. I don't have any questions for these two people. But, I mean, as far as if we're done questioning Heidi, it's all DA Davidson should probably be on the line as far as the rest of our discussion, unless we have something specific for Heidi.
I guess,
I mean, rather than discuss things when they're gone, I mean, that's not, it's kind of odd that we're doing things like this, so I mean, if we're gonna do it this way,
well,
they need to be on.
what we have is the information we need to make a decision.
Yeah, so we're just gonna make a decision without them being part of it now, or?
Heidi doesn't need to be in here and be part of it either.
I guess that's her call too. That's her call.
But, to get DA Davidson, I don't know how hard or easy that would be to get them back on the line. Rachel, is there a way we could get a hold of DA Davidson and see if we can get them back on the line?
I can discuss it, it doesn't matter, so, I mean, you run the meeting, that's fine. So, to my estimation, the way I think, there's a lot of numbers here, and there's a lot of things that we're not experts at doing. And sometimes you hire somebody simply because of the job that they've done for you in the past. I'm not really, it's always good to find out other information from other people to see if everything's on the right track. I've never seen anything that Heartland has done, not Heartland, North done wrong wrong in this estimation, I'm totally fine with using them for the services that they have provided and they will continue to provide for us. As both of them have said, it's very difficult to come up with a number as far as what they're going to charge us because
It's 3 weeks out.
it's not that we're going up to the bank and getting a loan today. This is a process and interest rates are changing daily, so they can't tell us, bam, here's the number. And so some of that is, again, that trust that you put into the people that you're hiring to do your work for you. I'm good with these people.
You know, I'm thinking we have to have a public hearing at one point, so there's a week. It could get,
Correct.
you know, we're talking,
Do I have to publish? If I have to publish
Todd?
anything,
Todd,
yep,
this is Mark. It's quite a lengthy process because once you decide to do this, then you've got to get bond counsel involved. They've got to do the paperwork, setting it for a public hearing. Then you've got notice, and I think that's a 10 and 20 day notice. So you're probably looking at least 6 weeks, maybe not quite that long, maybe 4 or 5, depending on how busy bond counsel is, before you could, even have the public hearing. So I'm guessing, months into the future before you ever get what your rate's gonna be.
okay, thank you.
Well,
And
any other
Saragona,
comments?
they refinanced last week, Saragona County,
Yes,
and they got .399 from a local bank.
yes, that rate, so they have they did a private placement and did the bids throughout the county. They had very, very aggressive local banks that were going up against each other to get that rate. And, the next day after that rate was locked in, then we started having that sell-off. But their local banks, they were able to get in. The one thing when looking at the size of this is, a $5.8 million deal. Could you have one of your local banks within the county buy that full amount at that rate? We can go through that process, but most likely, that's too large of an issuance, and you're going to get a better rate within the bond market based off of the size, and different county with them being, they were very competitive with each other. I know that deal very well. I financed that deal, so. It's just knowing each issuer and how you're going to get the best rate based off your size, and the banks that are in the county. Your county, they have participated within and bought some in the past, but at this size, a bond market deal in the market would make the most.
Well, we could sit here and talk all day, which we're not going to. We've gotten the information here that we requested. We have a company that is less than the other. We have the opportunity to proceed with this. And,
How do you determine one is lower than the other?
well, you got the quotes just like I did.
Yeah, but she just mentioned that she doesn't charge the disclosure fee. I didn't hear that from the other one. That's what I'm saying, there's so many numbers involved with all this that it's like an insurance company. I mean,
You add the $20,000 to that and it's still less.
The $20,000, I may have missed that.
That was what quote was. You know, we can go on and on.
I have a question. Okay, say we proceed with this, because there'll be some savings, have a public hearing and all that. When do we make the decision on which company? Can both companies present
That's
a
what the
savings on that day, on a certain day?
that's
You
what,
you can only have one,
One, okay.
one company going out into the market, in one day if you're doing a negotiated sale.
Okay, that's what I want. Yep.
and see what we are here for was to see who would give us the best, which is today's, it's gonna be the same when we finalize it down the road.
Yeah. No, right, because it's gonna change day by day.
It's gonna change daily.
Yep. I didn't know if they could both.
But what I was after is who would give us the best deal. Now, you'd never, ever be able to say, one's gonna give us the best deal at the day of the hearing,
Yeah.
or the final hearing.
Yep.
I asked who would give us the best scope now,
Yeah, right. I didn't know if you could do it on that day.
and we did get it.
I don't know, it just doesn't seem right, I don't know.
Money talks. We were asking for the best quote.
Yeah, I don't have an argument for it, I guess, I just felt that it just doesn't.
I'm just gonna move to make a motion that we continue on with Heartland Securities. I think we throw it down. I know there's some savings there, but again, we've got, there's what Mark, you say, 5 to 6, 7 weeks that we're.
Correct. What today was,
There's no discussion after a move.
okay. So, true. All right,
I'll second that.
okay, roll call. Todd,
Aye.
Mark,
Nay.
Jim,
Aye.
Mike,
Nay?
Smollett, nay. Now,
If I could speak,
well, that's the thing, you can speak and the other company can't.
But she's got a good point, I guess.
I've got something in front of you, when we're talking about, we're talking about who is the pie.
Rachel, did you send this to the supervisors, this, how it sent this?
You can look, when and when you asked a question about a piece of the pie.
Don't
Very
press
nice.
here, whoops. Okay, but make this short and sweet, Heidi, because,
So what I've got here is 3 deals that happened in the market.
but will that pertain to what we're discussing?
Yes. What happens, if you look here, I have 3 deals, Harrison County, Powashik County, Ida County. 3 counties in Iowa. All had deals in the market in February. If you look at these first 2, Harrison County and Powashik County, very similar size deals, same rating. The fee, you see, $12 for Northland, $12.50 for Dave Davidson. So fees very similar, Northland's a little bit better. I have here the yields and the coupons. And that's what we're talking about is how much are you going to be charged in interest at the day of market. And you can see on both sides of this Powashik County deal, Northland executed at better rates and got better interest savings.
This
And-
is Northland's information.
Yes. And so Northland executes for its customers in the market. And like I said, I've quoted you at the 1%, which is $10 per bond, per thousand. And we can execute in the market. The deals that you see here, the deal that Harrison County, if you would have looked at the rates, what the competitor has done, Northland's customer would have paid $20,000 more in interest. We execute in the market, we execute for our customers, and you have to look at it from a piece of the pie. When you ask me what the savings is, that could be any number. We've got a moving market. I can drop that fee down as low as it needs to go because I want to work for the county. I want to keep this relationship. I want to keep the knowledge that Northland has here. But I want it, the day that you're in the market, I want to get you a solid rate and the lowest interest cost as well.
Thank you, Heidi. Well, and again, based on what we got for information today, we have a higher and we have a lower. Beings that we turned down Northland, do we have any motions for D.A. Davidson? Hearing none, we've not resolved anything.
Well, I'm still thinking, by what's presented today, it looks like D.A. Davidson would give us a better option.
Is that a motion?
Well, I'll move to go with D.A. Davidson.
Do we have a second?
Based on the numbers we have.
I'll second that.
Roll call. Todd.
Nay.
Mark.
Aye.
Jim.
Nay.
Mike.
Aye.
Smollett. Aye. So, we have approved D.A. Davidson for our bonds. Anyways, we'll have to set a hearing date. Rachel? Go from there. Anyways, thank you, Heidi.
As you go forward, we'd be happy to help you, happy to continue to help you in any way possible.
We will keep you in mind, and we will work with our best deal. And thank you. Conservation request.
Good morning.
Good morning, Adam.
Follow that up. Anyway, just to catch the new members and to refresh your memory, Steve, back in November, the board did make a resolution to join into a loan agreement on our behalf, allowing us to go to the banks and request $800,000
Thank you.
fund this Pitson project, which you guys got a mouse problem. Has been going on for over a year here, 2 years actually, so working on getting this project funded. And I just added a box. I presented this same thing to the supervisors a while back. I'll give one to Rachel here. So current rates we got quoted, similar to what you guys just went through, was 2.25, and that was back in November 2020. And so I broke down what that would cost the county to borrow that. Cost conservation, essentially cost the county. As you can see there, I can give you a minute to look through that, but it cost us $500,000 in interest to borrow $800,000 at 0.225. So our board was requesting, maybe come to you guys, talk about different funding options. It's been kicked around. The naughty word of TIF was kicked around during the year prior to your guys' election, as well as the 1% sales tax fund, any other funds that could be tapped into. It's not my job to come and say we want this money or that money. It's just to show you the numbers and say before we lock in the process of this, is there any contributions you guys would like to make to the project from any funds? And I don't know that, we have to make a specific decision on that today as to where it comes from or how much it is, but we got about a year to get the deal done with the purchase agreement in place. We'd like to move forward on that quickly. Our board would love to have this open for public use as soon as possible, especially by fall hunting season, which is pretty doable no matter which route we take. But as Mark was saying, it does have to go to public hearing, most likely. Are you there, Mark? Not sure if he is,
Yes,
but...
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in the past, I think that threshold was somewhere around that $400,000 mark. So I did just put some scenarios in here for you guys. Essentially, if you invest now, you're saving the county money in the long term in interest. So, that's kind of what it is. Just want to get the ball rolling on this. Again, we've already got the authority to go forward with a loan for the full 800. So if we just go to the open banks right now, I know, like she said, interest rates are kind of going back up, so we'd like to go sooner than later if we do that route, even if we are going to pay that high interest rate. But just got to get the ball going one way or the other on this.
So what you're saying here is you're going to get a loan through the bank?
Through local banks, we'll make them compete, kind of like Cerro Gordo did.
And this will be paid with your CRP payments?
Correct.
Okay, I have a way I want to think about this a little bit. So the principal amount, the purchase price is close to $1 million. They had $100,000 on hand, and they got a grant for $100,000, as you see. So there's $800,000 that they want to finance. The people of the county pay local option sales tax for a purpose. And right now, at the end of January, we had $1.3 million of local option sales tax available. People pay it for a reason. They don't just pay it so we can collect it. It should be used for a purpose. I'd like to propose that we take $500,000 of that, apply it to this loan for conservation, drop that principal down to $300,000. $500,000 of that is about 26% of that total. And also what we discussed, we get around $40,000 to $50,000 a month towards local option sales tax. And the thought of changing the courthouse payment, which is right around $325,000 to $350,000 a year, that will help build that up also quicker, so to that total. So it's actually a small percentage of that fund that I'm proposing that we would use. It's all taxpayers' money. It's not just conservation's money we're looking at. This is all taxpayer money, whether they're paying a local option sales tax or whether they're making a loan to purchase this property. It's all taxpayer money. So the reason I want to do this is we're taking money of our own, the taxpayers, to help reduce the loan so we don't have to make such higher payments. That's the way I'm looking at it, that way. Did that make sense?
So how many years, Adam, do we have left that we are able to draw the CRP payments?
So the contracts change every 10 years. On the current contract, there's 5 years remaining if we got it bought right now. So the next one will renew, and then your rate will be a little bit different. Should re-enroll. I've never seen a program that's not re-enrolled that we've had, but you do have to do some things sometimes. You might have some cost as to reseed it or change the practice a little bit. But those are typically things we do in-house for private people anyway, so our cost would be
So
fairly low.
if we do the 500,000, it will still be, you'll have to enroll it in another term.
Correct, we would continue to enroll it because those funds would then come into the general fund and, you know, add money into the pool. Very seldom does that happen where you make a purchase that's basically an investment where you can continually gain direct dollars in. It is a legal practice. We do have to go through an operator on the contract. But that does work out, and then as you'll see, I've got a 5-year plan here my board just approved, and they would like you guys to all have a copy of. There's a bunch of projects in there that we want to do over not just 5 years. It's a wish list for longer than that, but they all have a price tag, and there's going to continue to be projects. So funding that now and allowing those payments to build up, maybe in the trust fund or wherever you guys see fit, would greatly benefit our program and benefit the taxpayers in that regard.
And I didn't want to butt in, I just wanted to ask that question. Did you have any more to add to that, Jim?
No, I don't, no.
Just to piggyback a little bit on that local option sales tax too, always gotta remember that people traveling through town are paying that, and, you know, that their money's going, helping out us taxpayers too, you know, so.
What is the local option tax, sales tax usually, where does that end up being spent on or going?
Currently it's sitting, lately it's just been, part of it goes towards the courthouse payment. I'd have to go back and check what it was used on previously.
There's a surplus in there too, right?
But that is a
1.3.
surplus.
Yeah, it's not surplus, what's the?
Keith, you had a question?
Yeah, the question of local option sales tax, doesn't that have to have a target in order to collect it? You have to have a purpose for it? Is that correct?
When we originally did the ordinance, it was set up, it was set up at 30% property tax reduction and 70% of any lawful use. And then
Pretty
of
flexible.
the last meeting that we had, it was February 25th of last year, not we didn't have, the last board. That discussion came up, and Mark had found out that it actually, state law changed that to 50-50. But and Mark, you did by all means interrupt me, I'm not speaking for you here, but in that meeting, he stated that he felt that almost anything that we do with local option sales tax serves the definition of any lawful use and property tax reduction at the same time. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I like the creativeness of it.
Pardon me?
I like the creativeness of it. Really flexible that way.
I guess it sounds like a plan.
Yeah, because I think, you know, my experience with CRP, you get 48,000 a year when it renews, it's probably gonna be less, you know? I mean, so you probably do need some assistance with this, I believe. Might be a good.
Don't you have a property up by Otrano you're gonna have to purchase shortly?
We do.
Any
Yep.
idea how you're gonna pay for that?
So that's another one that has its own CRP contract. We've been saving that in our trust fund to help pay for it, so the full price of that is $250,000, and I think we have about 60 some in the bank for that, so to speak. So we'll have to borrow, I think the number was 187,000 is what we're gonna have to take a loan for on that as well. And then that would be, the plan with that was to pay it with CRP as well. So And that deal was done in like 2016, so. Again, that would alleviate, you know, some of the debt burden on that. You could roll into that property as well, so get things paid down more quickly, more efficiently, and pay less interest.
I will say I will go along with this, 500,000. So, I would think that we need to make motions.
I'll move that we transfer $500,000 of local option sales tax to the Metro County Conservation Board for the purpose of them to put towards the purchase of the Pittston property.
Jim has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Mark has made a second. Roll call, Todd?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Smolik, aye.
Wow, thank you guys. That's awesome. Board will really
Do
appreciate
we
it.
have to set up a, now, as far as to borrow the money though, don't we have to set up, this would be a Mark question also, don't we have to set up a public hearing in order to make that happen?
Yeah, it sounds like now, Adam, you're gonna wanna borrow 300,000.
Correct.
Yeah, we still have to have a public hearing, it's just, the notice is different. So, if you also would just discuss that the county would, direct me to, enter or prepare the documents necessary for the county to borrow $300,000, and set that for public hearing, authorize me to insert the date, because I have to look if it's 4 and 20 or 10 and 20, depending on the amount. So if you just authorize me to set the date, and then we can put that in the minutes next week, what the date is, and I can just take care of getting everything to the paper and everything like that.
Is this just a verbal authorization, or do we have to go through the motions?
I would just, someone move to let the county attorney file the necessary paperwork for the county to borrow $300,000.
Jim?
I move to approve the authorized county attorney to, did you say to do the paperwork to borrow $300,000?
Or no, 300, yep.
I'll second that.
Jim's made a motion, Mike has seconded. Roll call, Todd?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Smolik, aye. So you have your power.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark.
Number 11, discuss and approve 2021 Main-to-Main Marathon road closures, and
Is Gail on the line?
Gail, are you out there? So
I'll get her policy for next week.
we'll just move on to items of note. Maybe you can call her and get her on. We'll see if we can get a hold of her, Rich. Items of note. Jim, do you have any meetings?
No, I did not.
Mike?
Yes, I did. I had one with the Substance Abuse Coalition Board. It was on the 23rd. We contribute money to them. They received Mitchell County's money. They're waiting on FEMA's $1,800 to fund their program. They had a Prime for Life at Osage High School talking about substance abuse and mental health. Briceville will be coming, and St. Ansgar's also. And they're trying to do tips for bartender training in Mitchell County, where they have a training for bartenders to watch for underage drinkers, intoxicated people, and stuff like that. But it didn't sound like none of the bars were really interested in taking part in it. So they're going to reach out to them again and offer these services. And that was the most of it. That's the only meeting I had.
Todd? No, I didn't have any. Mark? Truthfully, I didn't have one either. So going down to your management plan updates.
We had Street in Alma.
Okay. Noted. Did we get Gail yet? Gail, are you on the phone? Or on the, viral?
I'll see if she can do it next week.
Okay.
The marathon's a little ways away, I think.
I know, I thought it was early too, but she told me.
Yeah, seems like we get it early though.
They like to get it in.
Rich said, yeah.
I think it's, is it August? when they're on that?
Yeah.
August.
And I think the big thing will be depending on when Foothill gets done. I think
And
they-
that's in the plans, we have it designated that either be done before that date or they don't start till after that date.
Okay, yep, perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
Public comments? Yes.
St. Ansgar's working on a pretty aggressive economic development plan. I don't know where the board is at this time, if they're gonna be able to offer any funding whatsoever. The first phases of projects are gonna be quite expensive, and any help that we could get from the Board of Supervisors here at the county would be greatly appreciated. I don't know what you've got in the works, but we would like to see some kind of action if possible from this board to help out. It's going to be an aggressive economic development project that's going to span over decades, I'm assuming. Would appreciate your attention when you do get to that point. We'll all come back to meetings.
Is that the fall edition?
Pardon me?
Is that the addition to the
That's
west
correct.
of the school?
It's going to be quite an expense to the citizens of St. Ansgar. We're going to be as aggressive as we possibly can to help them make this go.
When will it's partly school, partly daycare also, right? Are they buying?
Yep, that land's already been purchased by those entities.
And when does that groundbreaking take
I
effect?
can't tell you that.
I mean, they're not counting on
Pardon me?
this county's help, are they?
They all are in this county, so we're all counting on them.
I think.
But I mean, like the daycare, and so they're gonna break ground and get moving.
Well, I'm sure
For
they
you.
are. I just can't tell you when those dates are going to be. I don't know that. I can't answer that question.
Okay. 'Cause I'm in touch with Lindsay and yeah, there's no dates anywhere. There's just,
Right,
there's
this
such
is in its
early.
infancy, but we had a planning meeting last night that went quite well. We pretty much nailed down all the needs and trying to figure out how we're gonna pay for things.
I think the previous board allocated
They
money,
pledged
they pledged $100,000 towards the daycare.
The daycare
There you
has
go.
funding.
Okay,
The daycare has some funding
so there is funding from, okay.
to help with that.
That's kind of where I was going.
I see. Okay.
Sitting in the bank.
Okay.
So, any further public comment? Hearing none, meeting is over. We will discuss main to main next week.